Hello, listeners. My name is Charles Scott. The program is called Can We Talk? We come to you once a week, and we are today going to give you information about some of the things that have happened in the previous week and maybe a little insight into the future. And I'm here with
Charles Scott Jr. How you guys doing today? Yes, we're going to give you updates regarding what's going on in the real estate market, and not just that, what you can do to prepare yourself for next year.
some of the things that have happened in the last week or so is that, we're always talking about interest rates, and interest rates have been going a little higher, a little higher, a little higher, but still, no matter what, there's still a good time to buy. And now, actually, interest rates have actually dropped a little.
Yeah, very true.
And I was reading some, commentaries today, and they're saying that possibly the interest rates have peaked and they'll start going down, and that's a good thing,
Very good.
especially going into the coming year. One of the things we want to talk about today is how you can prepare yourself for the coming year and
Yes.
some of the things that will help improve your credit, put you in a better position to be aligned with the economy, because we're towards the end of the year right now, and luckily it really hasn't been all of that bad. The predictions as to the doom and the gloom, as we always say, you always got to be positive.
Exactly.
And things are really still good. It's a good time to buy. As with that introduction, we're in real estate, and we are actually brokers with Tri-State Realty. We have a lot of people that are coming in from all over the area. Some people coming in from New York City,
Especially New York.
New York, especially locally also, and people that are relocating from one area to the other. There's a lot going on right now with the rental market. The rental market is sort of going through a transition, and a lot of people out there are moving from here to there. And what we find is that the entire rental, how can I say it, structure is changing.
Very much so. Not to interrupt you, but yeah, rentals right now, I would say I get a lot of calls every day. I work with rentals every day. But we're seeing, almost like a plateau where rents aren't increasing as fast as they were. We're getting more of a normalization, as I would say.
Also, maybe you can explain a little bit about how the structure of how people are renting or people are moving in. People are improvising to make it work, in other words.
Oh yeah, I see a lot more situations where people are, some people say shacking up, but you have mother, daughter, generationals, moving into one apartment, splitting the rent. But they must realize with these days, they are more vetting when it comes to an apartment. Anyone over 18 will have a credit check, background check. So when looking for an apartment, make sure you have everything organized. It'll make you have an advantage versus other renters.
Yes, and maybe we can emphasize that a little bit as to give you an advantage is what to do when you're looking to rent an apartment. Some of the people say, there used to be a program on the TV, kids say the darndest things. And sometimes you get people that are looking for apartments, and some of the things they say.
Oh, yeah.
And I have to say to them, let me just give you a little bit of advice. If you're looking for an apartment, that's not something you want to say to
One
start
thing
off with.
I would say recommend, don't say I need to move by this time, or I'm running away from my landlord, or he doesn't don't lead off with that, because it kind of leaves a bad impression.
Right. And some people, they start off by saying, I need an apartment right away. I say, well, okay. A common sense person would think that if you are looking for an apartment, you have to give your landlord 30 days notice.
Exactly.
So that's a key word right there. I'm thinking, okay, if I'm a landlord and I'm renting to you, you are in good, graces with your present landlord. That landlord you have to give 30 days notice to.
Exactly.
So when someone will say to me, oh, I can move tomorrow, and I'm like, okay, does your landlord even know you're looking for an apartment?
My favorite response is, oh, he doesn't need to know. I've heard that many times.
He doesn't need to know that I'm moving. So what happens, you look at it this way. What happens when the landlord calls the other landlord and said, oh, okay, I want to get the reference from you. You are renting to, let's say, James Johnson, and he's going to be moving into my apartment anyway. He's putting an application in. Can you tell me what type of tenant he is? And the other landlord says, well, I didn't know he was moving.
He still owes me rent from last week.
He didn't pay me for the last 2 months.
Exactly.
And so now, he starts talking about the person like this and that. And so it doesn't look good when you say, okay, I can move at any time. Don't worry about my other landlord, because the people are going to want to get a reference from that landlord.
Exactly.
So I would suggest, if you plan on moving, try and stay in the good graces of your present landlord for
Correct.
a little bit longer, you know. And the thing about it is that a lot of times people say, well, he doesn't fix this, he didn't fix that, he didn't fix this. And so my question always is, if you lived there, and I'll say, how long have you lived there? Well, I've been there 10 years.
Decade and a half, 15
I
years.
want-
I've heard a lot of numbers.
You've been living there 10 years and you didn't fix anything? And I'm like, now you're moving? I said, what happened for the other 9 years and 11 months that you were there?
Exactly.
And, you know, it sort of sounds like 2 and 2 doesn't equal 4. And I said, okay, if he's not fixing everything, what steps did you do to see that he does? Did you write him a letter?
Exactly.
The other thing is, did you call the city authorities, and did you ask them to come out and inspect the apartment? Because this is some of the things that you would do, because all apartments have to pass a certain code. And they have to come out, and if the landlord didn't fix this and the landlord didn't fix that, at least get it on record, right?
Exactly. What I see most people, sometimes they'll say that landlord didn't fix this, didn't fix that. But the thing is, they will tell landlord maybe once or twice, and then maybe the landlord forgot. And the thing is, maybe they owe money to the landlord. They don't want to call him. They're running away from the landlord. So, that, you know, make sure, you know, when you're trying to look for an apartment, make sure you're in good grace with your current landlord, because that will affect your, you know, your search.
Not only that, when we rent out an apartment and we are putting together, we don't put together the lease, we leave it up to the owner to put together the lease. All the landlords ask the tenant, if anything goes wrong, if something happens, please, please, please let us know immediately.
Exactly.
If you get a leak in your apartment or something breaks, we want to know as soon as possible so we can fix it. You got to realize, a landlord doesn't want their property to just go from, you know, good to bad and start leaking, and it gets worse and worse and worse. They want to know right away so they can get in there and fix it. Because,
Exactly.
you know, it might be a loose pipe. That may cost them $10 if you don't let them know about it. And the pipe then goes and then destroys the bottom of the sink and then goes through the ceiling and then floods the floor. It might cost them $1,000.
Or $10,000. They have
Or
to have an insurance
$10,000.
claim.
So they want to know right away. So if it's a $10 fix, they can fix it right away.
Exactly.
The problem occurs when you have a leak, maybe the tenant's late behind the rent and doesn't want to let the landlord know that, or into the apartment, so now the leak gets worse and worse and worse. So I'm just saying that, you know, try and stay in the good graces with your landlord, especially if
Correct.
you're planning on moving,
Very true.
because you're going to need the landlord's help. On the other side of that, you know, you got to, sometimes it doesn't work that way, because if you got a landlord and the landlord wants you to move and someone calls and asks for a reference, that landlord may say, oh yeah, they're great, take them.
Very true. I've seen that before also.
Yeah, so in other words, they want the people to move, so they,
So they'll say, yeah,
they give them a
perfect.
great reference. They give them, you know, a great reference.
Very true.
But then the other problem that you will incur is most landlords now are looking for 2 months rent, 1 month security.
Yes.
So if you're looking for that security deposit back to help with your new apartment, because you need that security to pay the security towards the new apartment, now you're going to have a problem, because what happens is the previous landlord won't want to give you back your security
I'll
deposit.
use that for repairs.
He'll want to use that for repairs. And then what happens is that we want to maybe spend a little time to give you a little bit of landlord-tenant law and rules and regulations. A lot of people, if they pay 2 months security on their rent, and then they're moving out, they will say to the landlord, well, use that 2 months of security as my rent, and I won't pay you for the next 2 months.
Can't do that.
Maybe you could talk a little bit
I
about
was gonna
that.
say, a lot of people do that thinking, okay, they think the security is there for their last month rent. It's not. That security is there for when you move out. The landlord goes in, does a final walkthrough, and says, okay, I'm using a portion of security to fix some repairs that may have been done, you know? But people may think I can use their security for their last month rent. That is not, if you look at any standard lease, that's not possible. It's not the right thing to do. But you see a lot of people, I get calls and they do try to do that. So make sure that when you're moving out, you have the money saved up to pay 2 months security, because moving into an apartment now, I must say 2 months security or at least a month and a half is the standard.
Exactly. So if you're going to rely on getting that security deposit back to be able to move into the next apartment, you have to realize that, you have to be in good graces with your landlord. On top of that, there's always a problem when a tenant is moving from one apartment to the next apartment when it comes to the amount of money to put down. Because look at it this way, the landlord where you live wants you out by the end of the month. What if he's got somebody moving in the first of the next month? So he wants you out by the end of the month. But then there's the catch-22. If he wants you out by the end of the month, the other landlord wants you in by the first of the month, you have to have all of the money by the first of the month. But your present landlord isn't giving you any money until you move.
Exactly.
So now you're in the middle. So you always have to have some money saved up. Because once you move out of that apartment, that landlord is not required to hand you the security deposit that same day you move out.
Nope.
They have a period of time.
Some places say, 30 days?
Some say 2 weeks. The law gives the landlord time that they can forward that security deposit to your address that you supplied them with.
Exactly.
It is not required that he hand it to you the same day that you move out. Because now he's got to reassess the apartment. He's got to maybe put together a list of repairs.
Yep.
The cost of the repairs, find out how much it's going to cost.
I was going to say, don't leave your furniture. You may say, I have this big couch. I'm going to leave it here. Let him get rid of it.
Oh, no.
He may have to take a little chunk out of your security to get rid of that couch.
Remember we had a tenant that said that?
Oh, yeah, I'm going to leave all the
I'm
furniture.
going to leave the furniture. And then I want to get my security deposit and leave the furniture.
That's not going to
Like,
work.
no, you don't want to do that. Don't plan on getting your security deposit back.
Exactly.
And even if the furniture is not good and you want to get rid of it, hell, you could have someone take the furniture away, but the big problem is going to be the landlord might charge you the whole security deposit to move the furniture.
Exactly.
When it could have cost you $100, he might charge you $600.
Very true. Now, one thing I'm going to tell people don't realize this, because I see this a lot. Let's say you've been living in an apartment for 10 years. Your landlord, people say I have a great landlord, he sells the building. Now your $800 rent is now $1,600. You got a new landlord came in, he doubled the rent. I see that in some cases. Now people may say, when I move out, the security went with my other landlord. Remember, when the new owner takes hold of the building, the previous landlord should transfer all security deposits to the new landlord.
Right.
So don't let them trick you. A lot of landlords say, oh, well, your old landlord went to New York. He has that money. No, your money should be with the new landlord. That money, by law, needs to transfer and is building interest for you.
Exactly. I had a move out in Naugatuck, Connecticut just last week where the new owner of the property had the security deposit for the tenant that was there. I had rented the tenant a single-family home. She was buying a home out of state, so she was moving out of the single-family house. But in the meantime, the owner of the house had sold it to another owner, so they were right there. And luckily, they were pretty good about it. They checked everything out, no problems, and they were going to pay her, the money the following day. So these are some of the things that we're telling you, just in case if you're renting, you want to be aware of, and because there's a lot of things going on here.
That's an important
happening
one too.
With the rental industry. And it's no longer where, you only have to show up with $500 or $800. We're talking a sizable amount of money.
I see some of these move-ins, people are coming with a little duffel bag full of money. At least $6,900 was the most I've seen. I'm like, wow, it's cheaper to buy a house. People are moving in with basically you have to bring 3 months of rent at the closing, make sure that everything's paid in full.
Right. And sometimes, it makes me wonder, I say, well, why don't these people just go ahead and buy a house since they're paying all that much? But I guess it's because of many reasons. Sometimes the people may not have the credit to buy a house because they're working on their credit. And in some cases, it may be a situation whereas they don't plan on being in the area for a long period of time.
Very
so
true.
They may only want to be there for a year or for many different reasons.
But it could be on the job for less than 2 years. A lot of mortgages require to be on the job for 2 years.
So there's a whole lot of different situations that occur when a person is renting an apartment or, in many cases, renting a house.
As we tell people, renting in the end, I mean, you see some people live in apartments for 20 years. Renting should be
Oh,
temporary. Renting should be a situation where, yes, you know, it's a period of your life, but your goal should be always ownership. You want to own a house because you can build equity and open more doors, more menus for you.
Exactly. The demographics are changing in the rental market also. We find that you have one extreme to the other extreme. In some extreme, there's a lot of apartment buildings that are being built. A lot of these apartment buildings that are being built smaller. One
Very
bedroom,
true.
2 bedrooms. In many cases, a lot of 1 bedroom because they're looking for the, you know, people that are maybe professional people that are living, want to be close to their jobs, and maybe they're not married, and so they're single, so they don't need a lot of room, they don't need a lot of bedrooms, they don't have a lot of children. So a lot of the new construction is being built to limit it to small apartments. In
Very
many
true.
cases, they don't want big families. Then and a lot of times it has to do with the cities. The cities encourage the developers to build smaller apartments versus large apartments because
Exactly.
the cities have a financial interest in that they don't want a lot of children because it may increase the enrollment in the high schools and they got to hire teachers and more services. So sometimes they make it hard for the developer, even though the developer may want to build larger apartments. Sometimes it becomes difficult, so the developer just turns around and says, okay, I'll just build something smaller.
Plus, the city may give that developer tax breaks if he follows their agenda also.
Exactly. He'll get tax breaks for building certain types of apartments. And so the builder will take advantage of those tax breaks based
Yes.
upon what he's going to be able to build. And and in the end result, he may still be able to build what he wants to, but he looks at expediency. If he's got to go through and fight in the city hall, fight in the building department, the zoning department, the regulations. He's
And
standing.
of course, inflation. I was gonna say a lot of builders. You think inflation at the grocery store is serious? Think about these builders with their lumber, their labor, appliances not being able to be shipped on time. They've been going through it in the past 2 years also.
So you find a lot. And then if you have larger families, or if you have a family that can get a large apartment, they tend to, people are getting together and coupling up. In other words, maybe 2 sisters join together and get an apartment together. Maybe you have a person that will sub-rent or sublease from the other person. So
Exactly.
all of the demographics and what's changing in the rental market will change. You have in other countries, you have some countries where people really don't own homes. They just have a lot of apartments. And
Very
they have
true.
small apartments.
I will say people don't realize one thing unique about the United States is, you know, we rally for independence, you know,
Yeah,
we're
variety.
entrepreneurship. A lot of countries, I mean, not the communist ones, but other first world countries like France, London, Australia, people rent. People don't own houses. I mean, the ones that own houses, I'll say they come from old money. They've had those houses in their family for decades. And the new generation, they said, okay, I'm going to rent.
Right. There's different types of models that are out there.
Very true.
And you'll also find that the newer houses that are, even the homes that are being built now, you have the homes that is one of each extreme. You either have someone that'll build a big mansion
Yes.
because a developer feels as though if I'm going to build a house, I'll build a huge, big house, and someone can afford it, and I'll make more money. Then on the other extreme, you have the people that if they're going to build, they'll build a much smaller house
Yes.
to tap into that market. They've even got the, what do they call it, the granny
I was
homes.
going to say the granny homes, or what do you call them, the in-laws, the tiny
The
homes.
tiny homes, they call
Yes.
them. They got little tiny homes, and the tiny home is a house that can be put on your land as long as you got enough land in the back.
Yep.
And the home could be one room.
One room.
In that one room, in one little section, you got a kitchen. And you got a little bathroom and shower in one little corner over here.
Yep.
You got the bed that folds down in the other corner.
Or like I see a little ladder. You climb up, the bed's on the second floor like a loft.
Like a little, what do you call them, the bunk beds.
The bunk beds.
Old bunk bed. All of that is built into one little room. It's called the tiny home.
Tiny homes.
The tiny home. There's a lot of changes going on in the rental market. There's a lot of innovative new designs coming out.
Yes.
In some cases in California, they have the containers. If you see all of
yes.
these containers that you see that are on the tractor trailers, they take these old containers, metal containers, They go in and they cut holes in for the windows, and they sheetrock the inside, they remodel the inside, they put the steps on the outside, they side the outside. Boom, there's your house.
And some people say those container houses are actually built very well. It's all steel.
That's all steel. You ain't got to worry about a hurricane.
Yeah, definitely. That's a solid built house right there.
So there's going to be a lot of different changes and a lot of things that are happening in the housing market.
Yes.
You need to know these things, especially if you're renting right now, and you need to know these things, especially if you plan on buying in the future, because it's all going to trickle down and it's all going to affect your life.
Very true.
Now, as I started off in saying that the interest rates are actually starting to come down a little bit.
A little bit, yes.
In the general overall housing market, what's happening out there? Some of the things that you see that's happening.
Well, I was teaching a class last Tuesday, and one of the proctors asked me, what do I see the market doing next year? And I was just reassuring the class, it's a class of first-time home buyers. I see things actually returning, what they say, back to normal. The past 2 years have been, I'll say, kind of unprecedented, where houses sold in a week, some houses sold in one day, people putting $50,000 over asking. That's not a normal housing market. Over the years, you'll see a normal housing market is a house being on the market for a month, maybe 2 months. That's a normal market. People going to see the house, have an open house, with maybe 5 people showing up. Now the open houses from last year to 2 years, it was up 50 people, cars down the street. That was not a normal market. So I see 2023 being a return to normalcy, which is great for first-time home buyers because you need time to evaluate your options. And the other, last year, my first-time home buyers, they had no time to think. We go see a house, we were in the parking lot, do you want it? Yes or no? We got to sign now because by that night, it'll probably be under contract. So I see 2023 being more of a return to normalcy.
Well, not only that, it's good for the buyer and it's good for the seller.
Yes.
Because we, in the last few months, we were seeing increasingly where a lot of the listings stated that the seller had to find suitable housing.
Yes.
Meaning the seller is saying to you, I will sell you my house if I can find the house. And you cannot move into my house until I find something that I like. Now, you can go into a contract, you can put a deposit on the house, but you can't move in until you could close, but you can't move in until they move out.
Exactly.
Or they will say to you, I will sell you my house and then I will rent from you until I find a house.
Yeah, right.
You don't want to do that.
You don't do that because, hey, let's say they can't find a house. Now you have to become a landlord. You have to manage them now. And now you have to find a way to, hey, I got to move in there. You just, you're technically homeless and they're still in the house.
They're in the house. What if they don't pay the rent? What if they got laid off and they can't pay the rent? Now they're in your house, which technically they're kind of used to because they've been
living there for 20 years.
They've been living there for 20 years, and now you're trying to get them out of the house.
Exactly.
And on top of that, if something starts leaking, you know how I said to you before, if something leaks, the tub leaks, and you want the tenant, or as a tenant, you want to tell the landlord?
Yep.
Well, they're saying, well, we're not fixing that.
Think about that. They've already sold the house.
We sold it.
They're not probably going to fix anything.
And you're the owner of the house, and you can't even move into your own house.
So I was saying, to segue to that, when you're going to be looking for a house, some people may be viewing, say, I'm ready to buy a house now. Make sure you choose an experienced realtor who knows how to write up contracts and put in contingencies that will protect you from situations like that.
And try to stay away from a situation where the seller is going to rent back from you after you buy the house. You don't want to.
That's trouble.
You don't want to do that. Now, there's another big development that's happening in real estate that's happened recently, and this is going to affect a lot of people out there, and that's the flood insurance situation.
Oh, yes.
That's something. In other words, in the past, if you bought a house and you were getting an FHA mortgage, you had to get the insurance that they use, which is the FEMA. Now, that insurance can be very expensive.
Very expensive.
Let me put it this way, not can be, it is expensive.
Very expensive.
If you buy a house and the bank considers it a flood area, the normal FEMA flood insurance is running anywhere from $250 to $300 to $400 a month.
Yes.
That's in addition to your regular insurance.
Exactly. That's a separate insurance. People don't realize that. Flood insurance is a totally separate policy.
And you do not have a choice. You have to buy the flood
mandatory.
insurance. Now, the big big development is that, and there's always been like two types of insurance. FEMA flood insurance.
Which is government.
Which is the government, and also the regular marketplace where, like, you know, you go to a company like Allstate, Nationwide, or whatever.
Private.
Private company. In the past, they wouldn't let you go and buy it on your own to a private company or an alternate insurance company. You had to buy the insurance through the FEMA, as if it was an FHA mortgage.
Correct.
And the majority of the mortgages are FHA mortgages. But now they've changed the rules, or they're changing the rules
This is big time.
to where now you can go out and buy the other insurance from another insurance company as long as you have the insurance. So what's that mean for you? Instead of the insurance costing you $300 a month, it might cost you as little as $100 a month.
Very true. I feel like that's going to be a very
That's going to be a name changer.
a leg up for the first-time home buyers next year.
It's going to be a big change that's going to occur all across America. And I was also seeing where now in Florida, where they're requiring the majority of the homeowners to all carry
Yes.
flood insurance. It used to be you had to only get the flood insurance in flood area.
Those hurricanes really changed the way that insurance companies are going to work in Florida going forward.
So
Drastically.
Before you buy a house, make sure you check to see if it's in a flood area,
Yes.
because it can make a difference as to whether or not you qualify for the mortgage, and it makes a big difference in your mortgage payment.
Exactly.
So check that out and make sure.
And as you know, as in closing, I was going to say, make sure you use a realtor that knows this information. Now, this is information that me and my father know because we look at the news every day. We live this. Some realtors may, not know that. They may know that until they see it on Instagram or TikTok. FEMA insurance is not required for FHA anymore.
That's it.
Very true. So, in closing, make sure you tune in every Monday or online, and make sure you understand that this is Can We Talk. And not only do we cover real estate, we cover business, other things that can help you in your life.
Exactly. So just want to let you know that, go online. You can see previous episodes.
Yes.
Tell your friends so that they can also tune in every week. And until next week, God bless.
Amen.